action role-playing game for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, coming out worldwide late April of 2010. It was developed by Cavia and published by Square Enix. The director Yoko Taro, a very interesting man and previous director to the Drakengard games, started out NieR looking on current events to establish the setting for the game. Those familiar with the Drakengard series knows that it is full of crazy people who love to kill.
Oh, hey, Zero!
Whereas in NieR, there was still needless killing, but Yoko Taro describes his thought process in depth during this interview published on the game website Game Church. I decided to have the army of the protagonist in Drakengard be one where everyone's insane, to create this twisted organization where everyone's wrong and unjust. I wanted to weave a tale about these twisted people. And then we worked on NieR. We created this game called NieR, and after the world experienced the 9/11 terrorist attacks and the war in Iraq, we were being bombarded with updates on terrorist organizations and activities, even in Japan. That's when my opinion changed. The vibe I was getting from society was, you don't have to be insane to kill someone. You just have to think you're right. So that's why I made NieR, a game revolving around this concept of being able to kill others if you think you're right, or everyone believes that they're in the right. Taking on that theme, the game starts off with a desperate NieR, the main character, and his daughter Yona in a barren city. There was another game released to change the main NieR into an older brother figure called NieR Replicant, but I personally like the father figure as NieR Gestalt. Anyways, NieR and his daughter are surrounded by these strange, spindly creatures called shades. NieR fights them off, but doing that, Yona activates the book Grimoire Noir and activates a very complicated, fantastical process that then leads into the future, 1,321 years later, to be exact. From here, we control another NieR and have another daughter named Yona, with a similar appearance to the prologue ones. This part of the game is set in a medieval era despite several industrial remains. There's the looming threat of shades and a suspicious lack of human life and settlements. So, to start off with the basics, Yona has a terminal illness and needs constant healing items, leading her to seek out the ultimate flower, the lunar tear, as it apparently grants wishes. When looking for the flower, she gets lost and or kidnapped, and NieR has to seek her out and comes across a white book called Grimoire Weiss, who tells him she can be cured if they seek some magical verses that grant the user magic powers. As you visit different locations to take on giant shades holding said verses, you meet Kaine, a foul-mouthed warrior.
Now pull your head out of your goddamn ass and start fucking helping us!
Emil, a sweet blind boy with a petrifying gaze, and a whole lot of tragedy. Once you collect all the verses, it turns out they're not quite what they seem, and thrusts the game into another quest to visit previously seen locations to eventually earn the right to the final boss and save Yona. I promise you, there is more to it than just seeking out your daughter. There's a whole other layer of dark secrets and the grim reality everyone faces once the final boss is slain. There is always a second level of narrative in Yoko Taro games, with the first being the basic story that drives the main character, then there's something else, an added flavor to the story which comes in the form of multiple endings the game presents the player. Not wanting to spoil it, I encourage any players to go through at least twice to achieve ending B. Throughout the second playthrough, there's Kaine's side of the story, and each story for the bosses you fight that humanizes them in some way, making you feel pretty guilty in the end. This is the huge theme Yoko Taro mentioned, the belief that everyone is right, that you can kill others because you're the one who is right, and that's rarely the case. Hopefully the story has enticed you enough to play, as there is not much appeal to gamers when it comes to the graphics and gameplay department. The graphics at some points look like N64 rendered shit, with a glaring problem with the lighting that you encounter. The character design is pretty cool, albeit a little strange. There are some interesting artistic flares every now and again, changing up the gameplay visuals or style depending on the area. Emil's mansion fades to a monochrome palette for most of that part, adding to the off-putting atmosphere that it emits. Later, in the same mansion, but a different part, it turns into an isometric game for one dungeon. As for the battle, you get a plethora of weapons you use to hack away your enemy using light or heavy attacks, along with the dark magic that Weiss grants you. The weapons you receive fall into three main categories: one-handed, two-handed, and spears. You find them in random locations, sometimes after bosses, but you'll find them throughout the world. You upgrade them with the materials you find throughout the world, with each level earning you an insight into the weapon's history in the form of a gradually building text. Many of the weapons are owned by the main character of the first Drakengard game, Kaim, as the ending E to that game spawns the world setting of NieR, and it is said that Kaim's weapons were scattered and to be found centuries later by NieR. It is a fairly straightforward game with little to explore. There are a few mini-games mixed in there, mainly for the achievement hunters who can spare a few hours to suffer a pretty abysmal fishing game or growing flowers where you rig it by setting your console clock forward several hours each time. Now onto my favorite part, the music and the voice acting. You have a star lineup of voices with Jameson Price as NieR, Laura Bailey as Kaine, Liam O'Brien as Grimoire Weiss, and Julianne Taylor as Emile. The music is composed by Keiichi Okabe, with Emi Evans providing the vocals to all of the songs with vocals, which is pretty much all of them. Emi Evans not only provided her singing voice, but worked on the language of NieR songs herself, stating that the composers gave her preliminary versions of the songs and the style they wished the language to be in, such as Scottish Gaelic or French, and she invented the words. Evans wrote songs in versions of Scottish Gaelic, Portuguese, Spanish, Italian, French, English, and Japanese, and wrote Song of the Ancients in an entirely fictional language. She wrote that song by listening to songs in as many languages as possible and jumbling them up together. For the other languages, she tried to imagine what they would sound like after thousands of years of drifting. Needless to say, the music and voice work in this game is an integral part of the game, giving gamers a wonderful experience with a detailed soundtrack and a powerful performance from the veteran voice actors. That's about all I have to say about NieR in this Game Light episode. I don't want to give away the game, but perhaps that will be done in a game series analysis with the inclusion of NieR Automata, so who knows. But for now, if you haven't played the game, I highly recommend you do. If you plan to play this game, harvest every shiny object you see in the world. You never know when you'll need it for your weapon upgrading. Enjoy!